It was a regular day in Japan, with people getting on the train to go to their destinations. As the train is about to arrive at its final stop, suddenly, everyone's phones start receiving alerts about massive earthquakes hitting different parts of the world. They even start feeling the tremors. The shaking gets stronger as time goes on, especially when the train goes into a tunnel. People start losing their balance and falling over each other, confused and scared about what's going on. Then, abruptly, the train comes to a halt with a jolt, leaving everyone terrified. As soon as they could, everyone rushed out of the train. But what they saw outside left them in shock and tears. Their familiar world had vanished, and instead, they found themselves near mountains, with their train stuck halfway through a tunnel, surrounded by a jungle. They quickly realized that their cell phones had no signal, making it impossible to call for help. Another shocking discovery was that only their coach, number 5, was there. The rest of the train was missing. Now, they knew they had to wait for rescue. Among the passengers was Sam, a government employee who worked as a firefighter. He, along with the train attendant, took charge of calming the frightened passengers and checking for injuries. Yumi was also there, helping out. Yumi had met Sam before, when Sam had conducted a fire escape training session. Since then, Yumi had greatly admired Sam. Back in the main city, everyone was worried and confused, including the police, who couldn't figure out where the last 2 coaches of the train, numbers 5 and 6, had disappeared to. They found the track leading up to the point of disappearance, but couldn't find the missing coaches. Interestingly, the whereabouts of coach number 6 is still a mystery, as earlier I mentioned only about coach number 5. Meanwhile, Sam, Yumi, and another passenger named Nevin decided to explore the area further. They ventured a bit away from where half of their coach was stuck in the tunnel. But to their surprise, when they emerged from the tunnel, it looked as though there were no signs of life, as if everything had been destroyed years ago. They quickly climbed a nearby mountain to get a better view, and what they saw left them astonished. The world they knew just a few hours ago had transformed entirely. All around them was a vast desert, with no sign of human life anywhere. Returning to their train coach, they shared their findings, prompting everyone to wonder how their surroundings could have changed so drastically. There were no cities or signs of help, and their phones had no signal. They realized they had been stranded for over 7 hours without any rescue. To organize themselves, they started making a list of everyone in coach number 5, totaling 46 people. With many passengers hungry and thirsty, and without any food or water brought along, the situation was dire. Then, a passenger named Rennie was looking through Nevin's bag for something to eat when she unexpectedly found letters that made her think Nevin was a criminal. Surprisingly, she then quietly took food from someone else's bag. Later, when a passenger realized their food was missing, Rennie loudly blamed Nevin, calling him a criminal in front of everyone. Nevin defended himself, saying it was wrong to accuse him without proof, and that anyone could have been on the train, so it wasn't fair to only suspect him. Still being suspected by everyone because of Rennie's claims, Nevin left the train angrily to find help. At this time, it was discovered that someone had accidentally recorded Rennie stealing the food, which cleared Nevin's name. While Nevin was out looking for assistance, he almost fell into a big hole, but Sam and Yumi were there just in time to save him. Then night came, and next morning people still couldn't believe that it not dream, but they really are stranded here, and passengers started becoming paranoid. Meanwhile, other passengers who had ventured out to explore were returning, sharing any information they could gather in hopes of understanding their location better. Among the discoveries shared was the sighting of a large tower to the east, which appeared to have been abandoned and destroyed for years. This was particularly surprising because, just the day before, there had been news articles about the construction of this tower, scheduled to start in 2023 and to be completed by 2026. This information added to the mystery of their circumstances. Ken, one of the travelers, found a tin bottle with a manufacturing date of 2026. Then a biologist found plants on the train that seemed to genetically modified, but such advancements were not expected to be possible until at least 40 years into the future. Putting all these clues together, the passengers came to a startling realization. Somehow, their train coach had traveled 40 years into the future, from 2023 to a time beyond 2063. This revelation terrified everyone, as it seemed to indicate that Earth was now uninhabited. The first was figuring out how to return to their original time in 2023. The second was understanding how Earth had reached such a state of ruin. Now in 2023, the news about the 2 missing train coaches spread everywhere, with government still puzzled. It had been 2 days without food and water. By the second day, finding water had become urgent. To prepare for any chance of rain, Sam and Yumi set up a plastic sheet on the train, hoping to collect rainwater. Sam and a few others decided to search for water, encouraged by the sight of green trees nearby, which suggested a water source could be close. Venturing into an area no one had explored yet, they finally found signs of water, a frog and wet soil, indicating they were on the right path. So they quickened their pace. Eventually, they discovered a small waterfall, which brought them all a great sense of relief. During this time, Nevin opened up about the letters found in his bag, which were actually from his brother, who had been in jail for 2 years and had been released just 2 days ago. Nevin shared that they had a tough childhood with abusive parents, leading him to start working at a young age to support himself and his brother. He became a hairdresser, striving to provide a better life for them both. However, his brother ended up getting involved with illegal activities. Despite his efforts, his brother ended up following in their parents' footsteps. Yumi and Sam felt sorry for Nevin, realizing that they had judged him based on his appearance and the letter from jail without knowing the full story. This deepened their friendship with each other. Nevin found himself developing feelings for Yumi, and now Yumi seems to like Sam. Amidst the crisis of being stranded in the future, a complicated love triangle seemed to emerge among them. However, their situation took a turn when it started to rain, providing them with much-needed water and a glimmer of hope for survival. But they were aware that finding water was just one of many challenges ahead. Shane, the biologist among them, stepped up to use his expertise to identify edible plants in the jungle, while also warning everyone about the ones that were dangerous. With his guidance, the group began search for safe plants to eat. During this time, Yumi accidentally consumed a plant that was poisonous though. Fortunately, it wasn't that lethal. To adapt to their new environment, they started crafting utensils from forest trees and making tools to start fires, even using their ATM cards as makeshift knives. This shift illustrated people's capabilities, who had been reliant on modern conveniences just days before, were now drawing on nature's resources to survive, showcasing human resilience and adaptability in the face of crises. They started by identifying each person's skills and specializations among the 46 survivors, considering how these could be utilized. While searching for food the next morning, Shane encountered a mysterious man near a cliff, marking the first time they had seen another person besides themselves since their arrival in the future. However, Shane was significantly injured during the encounter. With limited medical resources, Yuto, a medical student, became their main hope for treating Shane's wounds. Using Shane's botanical knowledge, they applied plants with antibacterial properties to prevent infection and found clean clothes to dress his wounds. After 3 tense days, Shane recovered and informed the group about the aggressive stranger in the jungle. To protect themselves, they followed Yechi's advice, Yechi being an employee at a security company, and set up traps around their camp. This precaution proved prudent when a day later, they heard someone getting caught in one of the traps, prompting them to quickly investigate. They discovered a child caught in their trap who was dressed similarly to them. The child managed to escape and urged them to wait for him as he ran off. Sam, Yumi, and Nevin, intrigued, followed him for several kilometers until they reached a small river they hadn't seen before. There, the boy told them to wait for a bit before disappearing momentarily. During this wait, Sam shared a personal story from his past. He recounted an early mistake at work where he didn't heed his senior's advice, leading to an accident that resulted in his senior losing both legs, a tragedy for which Sam felt responsible. This guilt had driven Sam to dedicate his life to helping others. To their astonishment, despite the darkness, the boy returned, this time with more people. They were then taken to a location where they found the second missing coach, coach number 6, which had also disappeared along with their coach 5, but ended up several kilometers away. This revelation solved part of the mystery of the missing train coaches. They met Hector, who seemed to have been chosen as the leader by the others in coach 6. They exchanged stories of survival, revealing significant differences in their experiences. Coach 6 had landed near a river, providing them with fish and water, and they had spent their time making their surroundings livable, including setting up kitchens and toilets. Nevin recognized the man who had run away and injured Shane as someone from coach 6. This man apologized, explaining his actions were out of fear, worrying they might be future inhabitants hostile towards him, which led him to push Shane and flee. He had kept his encounter with Sam, Yumi, and Nevin's group a secret out of fear. Then Yumi and Sam questioned how he knew they had traveled to the future. He revealed discovering a damaged ship by the river, where a radio broadcast and past recordings informed him it was now the year 2060. Hector then shared the history and knowledge he had learned since arriving in this future time. In 2026, just 3 years after 2023, a massive meteorite hit the Earth, landing in the Pacific Ocean. This caused enormous earthquakes and tsunamis worldwide, instantly killing billions. The survivors faced a slow demise as dust thrown up into the atmosphere blocked sunlight, leading to a collapse of human life on Earth. However, over the years, the dust and clouds cleared, and by 2060, the Earth had returned to its green state, albeit without humans. Hector explained that if they managed to return to 2023, their first priority should be to alert the government about the impending meteorite to prevent the catastrophe and save billions, including their own families and loved ones. The next day, while exploring near Coach 6, Yumi and Rennie stumbled upon a grave, hinting that the people from Coach 6 had buried a body there. As they tried to figure out who it was, some individuals from Coach 6 confronted them, warning them to keep silent about their discovery to those in Coach 5. In a desperate attempt to escape and alert the others, Yumi and Rennie split, with Yumi drawing the pursuers away to give Rennie a chance to inform the others. Reacting swiftly, Nevin and Sam rushed towards Coach 6, hoping to rescue Yumi. Meanwhile, Yumi, still evading her pursuers, found refuge in the same ship Hector had previously discovered. Back at Coach 6, Nevin noticed signs of a struggle, confirming their fears about the buried body. Hector then revealed the truth to them. Upon their time travel-induced arrival, a criminal among them had threatened the safety of all passengers, leading to a confrontation where Hector ended up killing him in self-defense. This act of protecting the group led to Hector being appointed as their leader. Yumi, hiding in the ship, witnessed Hector sabotaging the ship's communication devices, suggesting he was concealing significant secrets from the group. Her hiding spot was eventually discovered by Hector, who confessed to her that he never had any intention of leaving this timeline. Hector had a profound desire for everyone who arrived with him to remain in this future permanently, envisioning the creation of a new society together. Upon their unexpected arrival through time, Hector found himself in a position of leadership, a stark contrast to his past life where his business had failed and he was losing everything. Embracing his newfound status, he resolved to prevent anyone from returning to the past, intending to remain the uncontested leader in this new era. Yumi, now a direct threat to Hector's plans due to her knowledge of his intentions, was captured and tied up in the ship to prevent her from exposing him. The tension escalated with Yumi's disappearance, as misinformation spread between the two groups of survivors. Hector deceitfully claimed that Coach 5's people were planning to steal resources from Coach 6, stirring conflict and distrust. Meanwhile, Coach 5's group grew increasingly worried about Yumi's absence, and tensions boiled over into conflict upon their next encounter with individuals from Coach 6. In a drastic move to safeguard his secrets, Hector attempted to eliminate Yumi permanently. However, upon his return to the ship, he discovered she had escaped. Yumi managed to return to the group and exposed Hector's true motives, his determination to keep them all in this time by sabotaging any potential means of returning to their timeline. Hector, faced with the rejection of his vision by the group, tried to persuade them by highlighting the positives of their current situation: an unspoiled Earth with abundant resources, no overpopulation, and no pollution, where nobody would have to suffer from hunger again. However, the group, now aware of his true intentions, decided to ostracize him. Before being cast out, Hector presented them with a diary he had discovered on the ship, which mentioned a nearby tower that could potentially offer a way back to their own time. Motivated by this new information, two passengers ventured to the hill at night, discovering remnants of the meteorite that had struck Earth. These fragments possessed unusual properties not found on Earth. Meanwhile, in 2023, a scientist named Ray was analyzing CCTV footage to understand how the two train coaches disappeared. He discovered that a wormhole had opened in the tunnel at the moment of their disappearance. Ray concluded that the coaches were indeed swallowed by this wormhole, but the question of their final destination remained unanswered. Back in 2060, several passengers from Coach 6, unwilling to align with Hector's plans and longing to return to their families, joined the group from Coach 5. Together, they began to study the meteorite fragments, with Sam discovering that these pieces had a magnetic charge distinct from anything on Earth. The discovery that the meteorite fragments emitted a faint light and possessed a unique magnetic charge sparked a glimmer of hope among the survivors. They theorized that gathering more fragments could potentially allow them to harness this magnetic field to their advantage. A revelation came from one of the passengers who recalled observing what appeared to be a shooting star in the sky on the day of their time travel. However, Ray, analyzing the footage back in 2023, identified the event not as a shooting star, but as a supernova explosion in distant space. Supernovas occur when a massive star reaches the end of its life cycle and explodes, releasing tremendous amounts of energy. Such cataclysmic events can have profound effects on the fabric of spacetime, including causing earthquakes on nearby planets, forming black holes, and potentially creating rifts in spacetime. This understanding led them to conclude that the supernova explosion had created a rift on Earth, forming a wormhole that transported the last two coaches of the train into the future. Realizing they had traveled through time via a wormhole, the survivors recognized that returning to their original time would either require the wormhole to spontaneously reopen or find a way to generate enough energy to open it themselves, leveraging the meteorite's properties. The next morning brought new challenges as a heavy rainstorm damaged their shelter and spoiled their food supplies. Amidst this, a passenger suggested seeking refuge in the tunnel behind the train to escape the storm's wrath. Upon opening the tunnel door to seek shelter from the storm, the passengers were astonished to discover another wormhole, triggered by the rain and storm. An incidental experiment, where a doll from a passenger's pocket was sucked into the wormhole, sparked hope among them that this could be their pathway back to their original time. However, when Yechi attempted to enter the wormhole, Sam intervened, warning of the potential dangers and the risk death due to the wormhole's energy. The wormhole vanished as the storm subsided. Back in 2023, 2 detectives investigating the disappearance of the train coaches stumbled upon the very same doll that had been sucked into the wormhole. The doll, manufactured in China in 2060, served as evidence of the wormhole's bridging of these 2 distinct time periods. The survivors in 2060 deduced that the wormhole's appearance was linked to significant energy disruptions caused by phenomena such as supernova explosions, storms, or earthquakes. Realizing they needed a substantial source of electricity to potentially reopen the wormhole, they formulated a plan. They discovered of a broken electricity pole. By tracing the electricity wires from this pole, they hoped to harness enough power to artificially create the extreme energy conditions necessary to reopen the wormhole. After days of persistent digging, their efforts finally led them to an electric power substation that had been buried under mud for years. Miraculously, the interior was intact, and to their astonishment, they discovered that it still housed a significant amount of unused power, preserved over the decades. This discovery presented them with a glimmer of hope, suggesting they might have found the means to generate the energy required to potentially open the wormhole. The group devised a plan to utilize the discovered power source, channeling electricity to the tunnel, so that upon the arrival of the next storm, they could expand and stabilize the wormhole long enough for them to return to their own time. When Nevin noticed signs of an impending storm, he informed Yumi of his decision to stay behind, believing he had nothing to return to in their original world. Yumi, empathetic yet firm in her feelings, suggested they could remain friends, as her heart was for Sam. Sam, witnessing this exchange, found himself conflicted and unsure of how to proceed. As the storm began, urgency took over. Everyone rushed to board the train. Their efforts were successful. The wormhole expanded, becoming large and stable. Urged by Sam and Yumi to join them, Nevin hesitated as the storm intensified. Despite the challenges, they all managed to board the train, which then entered the wormhole, filled with hope for their return to their original time. Upon emerging from the wormhole, the train's doors were opened by security personnel, prompting the passengers to eagerly inquire about the date. The response they received left everyone astounded. Upon their return, the passengers found themselves on May 1st, 2026, 3 years after their departure in 2023, just before the year the meteorite was predicted to strike Earth. This realization meant they had arrived back in their original timeline, albeit 3 years into the future, at a critical moment before the anticipated catastrophe. Upon their arrival, medical teams promptly examined them to ensure they hadn't been exposed to any harmful radiation or carried any infections from their time in the future. The group attempted to share their extraordinary journey with the police and government officials, explaining their time travel from 2023 to 2060 and back, and presenting evidence such as the doll, meteorite fragments, and futuristic plants they had brought with them. They even shared a diary outlining a timeline that predicted Earth's destruction on December 9th, 2026, due to the meteorite impact. Despite the consistency of their physical evidence they provided, authorities were skeptical of the story. The idea of time travel and a looming apocalyptic event seemed too far-fetched, leaving the survivors' warnings unheeded. Meanwhile, the survivors were reunited with their families, who had been searching for them for 3 years. For those who had traveled through time, the experience felt like only a few months had passed. Nevin, who was initially felt isolated due to the absence of family, experienced a sudden reunion with his younger brother. His brother sought forgiveness for his past involvement in illegal activities, explaining that Nevin's disappearance 3 years prior had been a catalyst for his reformation. The reunion brought immense joy to both, marking a fresh start in their relationship. Meanwhile, the other survivors, despite the warmth of reuniting with their loved ones, were burdened by the knowledge of Earth's impending doom. The government's skepticism remained a significant barrier to their efforts to prevent the catastrophe. However, Ray, the scientist who had been investigating the train's mysterious disappearance since 2023, confirmed the survivors' claims, and the meteors is scheduled for December, just as the survivors had warned. In response to the government's inaction, the survivors turned to social media to share their knowledge of the future, hoping to garner public support and belief in their warnings. Their efforts paid off as their posts and videos went viral, spreading awareness of the danger ahead and mobilizing public opinion. Faced with mounting pressure from the viral campaign and the undeniable evidence presented by Ray, the government initiated a last-minute space mission. a rocket was dispatched with the mission to alter the meteorite's trajectory, aiming to prevent the catastrophic impact. As the critical moment approached for the rocket to intercept the meteorite, the survivors, aware of the stakes, began searching for a safe haven to ensure their survival should the mission fail. Their choice fell on Switzerland, believed to be a relatively safe refuge in the event of a global catastrophe based on their knowledge from the future. While preparations to depart for Switzerland were underway, Yumi realized that Nevin, now found a purpose to live, much like Sam, was committed to aiding others during this crisis. Amidst these tense moments, Ray received confirmation that the space mission had succeeded. The rocket had effectively altered the meteorite's course, sparing Earth from destruction. If you are still there, please like and subscribe to the channel.